This is the Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
It's precisely 1:15. This is the news on Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation. News is edited by Ramesh Piris and read by Sabrina Zawahir. First, the headlines. The head of state says Christmas exemplifies the noble values that make up the foundation of a civilized human society. The Colombo Archbishop in his Christmas message appealed to celebrate Christmas, giving prominence to spirituality and help those in need. IGP orders special security measures for churches. COVID-19 recoveries tally on the rise. The Sri Lanka government to lodge a complaint with the office of the Basel Convention following the discovery of agricultural waste in containers imported from Ukraine. And in international news, Pope Francis urged people to help the needy in a scaled-back Christmas Eve mess in the Vatican City. In sports news, it is cricket. Armed with a stronger seam attack, Sri Lanka look to beat the odds again. Now the local news in detail. President Gotabaya Rajapaksa says Christmas is a noble religious event in the Christian calendar associated with the birth of Jesus Christ, which inspires the devotion of millions of Christians in God around the world and second only to Easter. Issuing a message to mark Christmas, the head of state said it exemplifies the noble values that make up the foundation of civilized human society, such as peace, love, kindness, coexistence and compassion that Jesus Christ preached and demonstrated by practice. Meanwhile, the Prime Minister Mahinda Rajapaksa says the birth of Christ represents peace, forgiveness, mercy and above all, hope. Issuing a message to mark Christmas, the Premier thanked all those in service, doctors, nurses, volunteers, the military, police officers and everyone in service who tirelessly contributed to the community's welfare and safety during these perilous times. The Premier noted that the birth of Christ represents peace, forgiveness, mercy and above all, hope. The leader of the opposition, Sajit Premadasa, says Jesus taught everyone to respect all human beings and to understand nature and the environment as a whole. The parliamentarian, issuing a statement to mark Christmas, said the main theme of Christmas is peace, and with no religious leader having advocated for extremism or terrorism. The police spokesman, DIG Ajit Rohana, says the Inspector General of Police has ordered SPs, ASPs and OICs of all police stations to provide special security measures to churches in their respective areas today and tomorrow. He said the directive was issued to superintendents of police in charge of divisions, assistant superintendents of police in charge of police stations and officers in charge to meet with the priests of the respective churches and discuss the security measures. Sri Lanka's coronavirus case load today surpassed 39,000. 406 new patients were confirmed today, increasing the number of infections in the country to 39,231. Earlier, the number of coronavirus recoveries rose to 30,568. Accordingly, 8,478 COVID-19 patients are currently being treated for the virus at 64 treatment centers. Moreover, 14,933 PCR tests were conducted in the country as of yesterday to identify COVID-19 patients. Accordingly, the number of PCR tests conducted in Sri Lanka since the 18th of February has risen to 1,167,552. Meanwhile, police say 54 suspects have been arrested during a period of 24 hours for failing to adhere to quarantine regulations. The Deputy Inspector General of Police, Ajit Rohana, says 54 suspects were arrested during the past 24 hours for not wearing face masks and failing to ensure social distancing. He noted that since the 30th of October, 1,794 suspects have been arrested for violating quarantine regulations. This news is brought to you by Sri Lanka Broadcasting Corporation.
December, a range of unmatched benefits with People's Credit Cards from People's Bank.
Continuing local news, the government has decided to lodge a complaint with the Office of the Basel Convention following the discovery of agricultural waste in containers imported from Ukraine. The directive has been issued by Minister of Environment Mahinda Amaravira to the Secretary of the Ministry Anil Jasinghe. The Basel Convention on the Control of Transboundary Movements of Hazardous Wastes and Their Disposal was adopted in 1989. Sri Lanka is a signatory to the convention, which aims to protect human health and the environment against the adverse effects resulting from the generation and movement of hazardous wastes. Yesterday, the Sri Lanka Customs uncovered a stock of agricultural waste that has been sent instead of an order placed by a group of importers for coriander from Ukraine. The commander of the army, Lieutenant General Shavendra Silva, said Yonakapura East and West in the Kwella Matara have been isolated with immediate effect. The directive was issued following the detection of several new COVID-19 cases from the area. The Excise Department says that all liquor shops excluding tourist board-approved hotel licenses and special boutique villa licenses will remain closed today in view of Christmas Day. The Director General of Excise has also ordered the closure of all liquor shops across the island regardless of license classification on Uduap Full Moon Poya Day, which falls on December 29th. With that, we conclude the local news. The main news story follows.
December, a range of unmatched benefits with People's Credit Cards from People's Bank. Discounts up to 60% and interest-free installment plans from selected merchants.
A mother knows the pain of each member of the family. Siddhalepa, the trusted relief for aches and pains.
An effective therapy for relief from cold, sneezing, flu, headaches, swelling due to toothaches, rheumatic, discomforts, and muscular aches and pains. Siddhalepa, the Veda Mahatmya in every home.
The main news story is brought to you by Siddhalepa Veda Mahatmya.
The Colombo Archbishop Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith, in his Christmas message, appealed to all Catholics to celebrate Christmas while giving prominence to spirituality and also by committing themselves to help those who are suffering. He further stated that uncertainty and fear are the feelings that characterize these days leading to Christmas amidst a pandemic. He noted that amidst all this suffering, the birth of Jesus brings this wounded humanity a message of hope that is needed now more than ever. Meanwhile, the main Christmas Eve Mass was conducted at midnight by Colombo Archbishop His Eminence Malcolm Cardinal Ranjith at the St. Sebastian's National Shrine in Kandana with limited participation of devotees in adherence to COVID-19 regulations. That was our main news story.
The main news story was brought to you by Siddhalepa Veda Mahatmya.
Brush your teeth twice a day for healthy teeth and gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, your trusted brands in oral care for many years.
Supiriviki Ayurvedic toothpaste for adults. Kakulu Ayurvedic toothpaste for kids. 9 Ayurvedic ingredients of Supiriviki will protect your teeth and strengthen your gums. Supiriviki and Kakulu, products from Siddhalepa.
In Watchlight, the governor of the Central Province, Lalit U. Gamage, has once again urged the public to refrain from entering the Central Province unless for essential reasons. Governor Gamage requested the public to refrain from engaging in Adam's Peak pilgrimage until the 31st of January. He revealed that considering the prevailing situation in the country, the COVID Prevention Committee of the Central Province has taken a decision to request devotees to refrain from visiting Adam's Peak until the end of January. That came to you in Watchlight. A bulletin of world news follows. The headlines of the world news. Pope Francis urged people to help the needy in a scaled-back Christmas Eve Mass in Vatican City. The Queen spends Christmas apart from family. The Neverland Ranch sold to a billionaire for $22 million. Now the world news in detail. Pope Francis urged people to help the needy in a scaled-back Christmas Eve Mass in Vatican City. Pope Francis called for listeners to mark the season by considering our injustice towards so many of our brothers and sisters rather than our endless desire for possessions. While the Pope's Christmas Eve homily is typically heard in person by some 10,000 people, coronavirus precautions cut this year's crowd to less than 100 at St. Peter's Basilica. All those in attendance this year wore masks except for the Pope and a small choir. The Mass began early as the area remains under curfew. The Queen will reflect on the hardships of the pandemic in her Christmas speech later as she and the Duke of Edinburgh spend the day apart from their family. They will celebrate Christmas at Windsor Castle and not Sandringham as their usual tradition. The royal family usually spends the day together but will not visit each other this year because of restrictions. The Queen will also forego her usual church service and worship privately to avoid crowds, it is understood. Her Christmas Day speech will be broadcast at 3 Greenwich Mean Time Zone. The Neverland Ranch of the late pop star Michael Jackson has reportedly been sold to a billionaire investor for a quarter of its initial asking price. Ron Burkle, a former friend of Jackson, recently bought the estate in Los Altos, California. The Wall Street Journal, citing public records with the deal, reported that Burkle paid $22 million for the Neverland Ranch. The 2,700-acre compound was first listed for $100 million in 2015. With that, we conclude the world news, and prior to concluding the world news, the headlines once again. Pope Francis urged people to help the needy in a scaled-back Christmas Eve Mass in Vatican City. The Queen spends Christmas apart from family. The Neverland Ranch sold to a billionaire for $22 million. With that, we conclude the world news. Development news follows. Taking a look at the development news, the Tourism Minister Prasanna Ranatunga says 517 million rupees has been allocated for the development of botanical gardens in the country next year. The botanical gardens earmarked for major development are Peradeniya, Gampaha, Haggala, Sitavaka and Mirajavela. Under this, the infrastructure facilities will be provided to about 5,000 flower growers. In addition, funds have been allocated for the Migallava Haritapiyasa Training Centre for branch classification and research program. Minister Ranatunga further said the government intends to develop all botanical gardens in the country as local and foreign tourist attractions. Botanical gardens have been vested under the Tourism Ministry. That was the development news. Next up is the sports news. In sports news, England will be allowed to fly to Sri Lanka for next month's test despite flights from Britain being suspended because of the new variant of COVID-19. They will fly on a chartered plane and take coronavirus tests before departure and upon their expected arrival in Sri Lanka on 3rd January. They will then spend 10 days in a biosecure bubble before the first of 2 tests, which will start in Galle on the 14th of January. Meanwhile, skippered by Dimut Karnaratne and armed with a stronger seam attack, Sri Lanka look to beat the odds again when they meet hosts South Africa at the Centurion on Boxing Day on the first test of a 2-match series. That came to you in sports news. Business news follows. In business news, in its steadfast commitment of offering digitalized services to its students who are aspiring professional accountants, the corporate and strategic level exams of the Institute of Chartered Accountants of Sri Lanka were held online for the first time in the Institute's 60-year-long history. Over 1,900 aspiring chartered accountants sat for the corporate and strategic level exams, which were held this month, while over 400 proctors monitored the students during the exams. Of the total number of students who registered for the online exams, the exam recorded a 90% participation. That ends business news.
Economic news, courtesy of...
Congratulations on your promotion. When will be our treat, huh?
How about today?
Oh no, I was just joking.
It's fine. I have my LOLC credit card with me. Let's go out today.
Introducing LOLC Finance Credit Cards. Fuel the goodness in you.
The Central Bank of Sri Lanka says it will take appropriate steps to bring the rupee to 185 to the US dollar as the currency weakened towards 193 earlier this week. In a statement, the central bank said it is of the view that the recent increase in volatility of the exchange rate is unwarranted and unacceptable. Accordingly, the central bank said it will take appropriate action aggressively to contain this volatility in the domestic foreign exchange market. That was economic news.
Hello, Buddha. Did you land already?
We're in transit and our flight got delayed.
How is Shani? Poor thing with her pregnancy.
Calm down, everything is sorted. Why, I have my LOLC World Card with me. We are at the VIP lounge. LOLC Finance Credit Cards. Fuel the goodness in you.
Finally, it's a look at the weather report. The Met Department says several spells of light showers will occur in the northern, eastern, north central and Uva provinces. Showers or thunder showers will occur at several places in Sabaragamu province and in Kalutara, Galle and Mathura districts in the afternoon. Fairly heavy showers, about 50 millimeters, can be expected at some places. That was a look at the weather report. Prior to concluding this bulletin of news, the headlines once again. The head of state says Christmas exemplifies the noble values that make up the foundation of a civilized human society. The Colombo Archbishop, in his Christmas message, appealed to celebrate Christmas giving prominence to spirituality and help those in need. IGP orders special security measures for churches. COVID-19 recoveries tally on the rise. The Sri Lanka government to lodge a complaint with the office of the Basel Convention following the discovery of agricultural waste in containers imported from Ukraine. With that, we end the news and over to my friend and certainly yours as well, who's all in smiles and geared up to keep you entertained this afternoon. It's over to Heshma. Over to you, Heshma.